How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So it's time to start looking at what it's going to feel like and look like to level up some of the professions in Dragonflight. Today we're going to pick Jewelcrafting to start with. Why? Because it's a personal favourite of mine, and it's one that's got some little interesting twists to it along the way. Obviously, I've got to start with a little bit of a disclaimer here that I'm recording this partway through the beta process testing stage. So if you are watching this in the future, if Dragonflight is live and you're looking for inspiration on how to level up, be aware if you follow this little walkthrough, there may have been some subtle changes to this by the time that the actual expansion goes live. I'm more doing this today for the purpose of trying to just showcase the profession in a little bit of detail for those who may not necessarily have either the time or the ability to jump onto the beta themselves and want to just kind of keep ahead of what's going on. Closer to the launch of Dragonflight, I will try, or at least I will strive to put together some slightly more polished, slightly more accurate leveling guides for the professions, but this should be a little bit of a walkthrough, and hopefully you can find something interesting from this. Let's talk about Jewelcrafting then. The big thing is to note that you can pick this up from 58. There's no restriction to being level 60. You can pick this up from level 58, which is going to be nice. It means if you haven't quite fully leveled all of your alts, they can still have access to the new professions. The leveling path is an interesting one in Dragonflight. The first thing many people will notice is that actually leveling from 1 to 100 is not really a thing that you can do in one go. For most of the professions, you get roughly halfway, maybe 40, 50, if you're lucky, 60 points into the profession, and then you kind of hit this, almost feels like a bit of a brick wall. This is mainly because of the work order system that's going to be implemented. Work orders are going to be the long tail for leveling the profession. So what the key thing for most people to do, and I suspect what most people will want to do once Dragonflight goes live, is they'll probably want to very quickly get to at least 50 skill points. This is kind of the threshold that I'm going to work towards when it comes to sort of planning out leveling guides and such for these. 50 points is going to be quite key because it's going to allow you to unlock 2 specializations. You unlock your first specialization at 25 skill points, the second one at 75, and if you've got 3 or 4 specializations you can choose from, you can pick some more once you continue leveling, but you should be able to get your first 2 relatively quickly. And you can do it for the most part with just vendor recipes, so that's what we're going to look at today. For reference, I have done this a few times already on the beta. This is not my first pass at this. I have actually got some leveling paths planned out for all of the professions so far. This is in my Dragonflight gold making cheat sheet, which is in early access at the moment. It's nowhere near finished, but if you are a channel supporter in some way, shape or form, whether that be a YouTube member, a Twitch subscriber or a Patreon, you can find access to this little cheat sheet before Dragonflight launches. This is linked in the Discord. Jump in there and check it out if you want to have a look for yourself. But what I'm going to be doing is going through this and just walking you through this in a little bit of detail and hopefully trying to explain some of the significant changes that we're going to be seeing in Dragonflight. So, material-wise, there's not many we need for Jewelcrafting because it's, not deviating too far from what we know and what we love. You're going to need a bunch of ore. You're going to prospect a bunch of ore, which is going to give you a bunch of gems, and then we're going to make a few bits and pieces. So, to start off with, prospecting is slightly different because we don't have mass prospecting anymore, but what we do is we probably want to just be prospecting Terabyte ore for the most part. And more importantly, quality 1 Terabyte ore. This is going to be one of the big questions that people will be asking themselves to begin with. Should I be prospecting higher quality ore? Now, for my testing as it stands on the beta currently, the answer to that question is in most cases no. At least for if you're just trying to level your profession to begin with. Once you've got the profession leveled and once you're trying to make the best cuts of gems you can, the best pieces of jewelry that you possibly can, maybe there's an incentive there for you to start using higher quality ore for prospecting to hopefully get yourself higher quality gems. But for the purpose of leveling, just use the quality 1 stuff. It's probably going to be the most readily available. If you happen to be a miner and you want to go and get some of this yourself, it should be quite easy to come by. And more importantly, there should be plenty of this on the auction house if you need to just buy it to power level this nice and quickly. So we're going to try and get our first 5 points with Jewelcrafting just purely by prospecting some Tyrivite. You'll see we'll get some gems. We'll start to get some gems. There's 5 different colours of gems this time round. We'll also get some crumbled stone and some fractured glass. And weirdly, there's these little grey items that we occasionally get when prospecting as well. So we can make this organised a little bit. Prospecting will go grey once you've hit 5 points. Now, of course, you're going to need these gems and stuff in the to begin with, so don't feel too much of a problem about prospecting a little bit of bonus. Or I think I'll prospect 100 to start off with. We might need to come back and prospect a bit more, but I started with 1,000 of everything. Starting with 1,000 of everything, just for the purpose of this video at least, will showcase roughly what you should expect. So let's put these in order, just so we have what we've got, we can see what we have to play with here. Prospecting Tyrivite, for the most part, is going to get you the uncommon gems, and from time to time it will also give you the odd occasional rare gem as well. If you're looking for rare gems, you're probably going to be prospecting Draconium ore, and if you're looking for lots of rare gems, and occasionally the diamonds, we'll get to diamonds later on in the video, but then you're going to be looking at prospecting Casgarite ore, which is the rarest of the 3. So we got ourselves 5 points. Let's go to our trainer. Let's pick up some more patterns so we can work a little bit further through this. Jewelcrafting. All right, let's grab these then. So I worked it out that from this point onwards, it makes a lot of sense. To start crafting up some of these reagents that we're going to need further on down the line. I'm thinking that we should, if I check my notes here, probably 5 shimmering clasps is the next logical thing, which is lucky for us considering we've just managed to get 5 mystic sapphires. If you're missing some of these just gems on the process, just, you know, prospect a little bit more ore. With the nature of RNG, you might not necessarily always get the exact gems you're looking for straight away, but you'll need them in the future, so don't worry about it. I do need a jeweler's toolkit though. Let's grab one of those. Ultimate army knife should do the job. Right, let's make 5 of these then. That should get us up to 10 skill points. What you'll notice here is there's a first craft bonus as well. This is going to be quite crucial, and this might change the way that people wish to level their professions. There's the first time craft bonus gives you these things: artisan's metal. The first time you craft anything, you'll get 5 artisan's metal, and you'll also get 1 knowledge point to spend in your specialization trees later. There's a lot of sense into trying to just craft 1 of everything to get as much of this as you can to begin with, and also to unlock as many skill points as you can to begin with. But I would sort of recommend most people look at crafting 1 of everything once they've already leveled. Trying to do it whilst you're leveling will probably use a lot more resources and you'll be making lower quality stuff. So I would just get leveled, get to 50 first, and then go back through and then probably look at recrafting or crafting 1 of everything to get as many of these first time craft bonuses as possible. So now we should be at 10 skill points. Let's learn some more recipes then. We need a few more recipes. Let's grab those then. From 10 onwards, I think we then start making a few bits of gear. The one that made sense to me was the Sundered Onyx loops. This is your first profession equipment. If you're new to professions, you might have noticed these slots up here. There's a slot for a profession tool and 2 profession accessories. With these allows you to boost your stats, your specific stats regarding crafting. You'll have inspiration and you'll have resourcefulness. And the higher you can push those stats, the more magical things happen. The less materials it costs, the more chance you have of crafting something rare. And there's a crafting speed one as well. There's a couple of bonuses. You'll probably be aware of these quite quickly. Although looking at this, it may now start to need frameless lenses. This is a bit of an interesting one actually. I hadn't accounted for this. Frameless lens is something we also make as jewel crafters, but not yet. Weirdly, not yet. It may be a case that you might have to either look at crafting some basic gems instead of these, We need to get to 16 skill points, I worked it out by previously. So maybe if you can grab yourself some frameless lenses off the auction house at this point, that would be a bonus. Jewel crafters will have made a bunch of these already. Alternatively, you might want to craft up a few gems instead. Using gems, though, we're going to start. You're going to start using these rare gems that you've been getting from prospecting, or you're also going to start using these elements, the rousing frost, or in this case, rousing earth. Let's grab a couple of those lenses. We can get these from the vendor at the moment. They won't be vendor items once the game goes live. They'll be on the auction house, but they are for the purpose of testing at the moment on one of these vendors. If they're overly expensive on the auction house, if you're using this as a bit of a walkthrough when the game goes live, then maybe look at prospecting some more and pick up some gems. We're probably going to need a bunch of these. Let's grab a bunch of these just for now. There we go. This is not necessarily designed to be a perfectly well executed, smooth process, but this is just, to hopefully showcase what's going on. Haha, we need more sundered onyx. Okay, back to prospecting then. Let's prospect a little bit more. Prospecting rates are something that can also be found for reference in my cheat sheet. There's a tab for prospecting where we've done a little bit of data collection, trying to work out just what prospects into what. Once again, usual disclaimer. This is beta information. There's a good chance that it might have slightly changed by the time it goes live, but I can only do what I can do. So I'm testing this and I'm putting it out there now in case it's helpful for people. They've been removing the profession vendors quite frequently on the beta, which is why I'm taking the opportunity to utilize them when they're there. They took them down to test the Mythic Plus a couple of days ago, so I'm trying to get a few videos recorded ahead of time in case they remove the vendors again. Right, we're starting to get a few more coming through here. We can go back and prospect more in a minute if we needs to. Let's move this out of the way. Let's get me Jewelcrafting list back up. Right, let's craft 2 of these then. 2 of these gives us 1 to equip ourselves and then 1 to maybe look at selling. That should also get us all the way up to 16 skill points now. Once again, you can see we've got our first time craft bonus here. We got 5 artisans metal and we got a Dragon Isles Jewelcrafting knowledge. So stacking those up nicely. Let's equip one of these. Now these are unique equipped, so unfortunately, although you're crafting 2 of them, you can't actually equip both of them yourself, but there'll be other jewel crafters out there that maybe want one, or maybe sell it to an enchanter to disenchant it or something, who knows. Right, 16 points. We need some more recipes then. Jewel crafting. Whole bunch of recipes come at level 15. From 15, you'll see we can now actually make these frameless lenses ourselves. They're not too difficult or too expensive to craft, but what you will notice is it requires this finely ground gemstones, which is something you won't probably naturally have come across yet. Finely ground gemstones comes from prospecting gems, not ore. It's a weird sort of system that you can re-prospect any gems that you don't particularly need. If you end up with a surplus of one type of gem, for example, you can actually choose to prospect gems. And it's when you prospect gems that you'll get that finely ground gem dust if you're hunting for it. But it's also a reagent that you can look at selling on the auction house as well, which is quite nice. So from 16 to 22, I worked out that bold print bifocals is probably where we should be looking at again, making some more profession stuff. This time it's a scribe accessory. The inscriptionists, the scribes out there, are going to be looking for some of these. We can craft up 3 of these by the looks of things. Do we have enough for 3? We do. Let's just get those crafted then. Craft up some frameless lenses if you need at this point. So there we go. There's our 22 points in that. We are very close to 25 points, which will unlock your first specialization. This is where I suggested some carving, some revitalized red carvings. This is where you might need to grind up some spare gems to get some finely ground gemstones if you haven't got any so far. And polished stone is a reagent that we can also make as a jewel crafter ourselves. This came earlier on. This is one of the reagents. We can make some of this as well. Let's get some rousing earth to maybe make some of that. Let's craft up a bunch of those quickly. The trick with jewel crafting, and the reason it's one of my favourite professions, is more along the lines of it's trying to utilize everything you get from prospecting. The more of the materials you can use to either convert into something that you can sell or something that's useful to yourself, the more success you'll have with jewel crafting, and that's what's I find really enjoyable about it. We're going to need some finely ground gemstones then. Let's maybe then prospect a couple of gems. The orange gems, weirdly enough, tend to be the gems that you'll come across more frequently, but let's prospect some of these for now. There we go, some finely ground gemstones. What are we missing? Oh, we've accidentally gone and prospected all our Queen's rubies. That was entirely my mistake. No problem. We can get some more. Let's prospect some more Tiravite ore. We're looking for... What are we looking for? Hopefully they do fix this issue, that things are a lot of the time overlapping and not quite easy to see. It's because it's obviously beta. It's still work in progress. Actually, if we were to close this one, it all starts to look a bit neater and tidier. Let's put our gem powder over here. It's going to be handy to keep track of. Right, there we go. Now we can make a few of these red carvings. These are one of the only things that gives us guaranteed skill points at the moment. I should probably point out these wisps of tear. These are a bit of a bait. I wouldn't although they do guarantee you skill points, I probably would not recommend making these. These are an optional, these are what are known as a finishing reagent, and finishing reagents give you just a boost to your skill when you're crafting something. But the problem is they take artisan's metal. If you're not too familiar with this as a material just yet, be aware that artisan's metal is significantly limited to you as a crafter. You're going to constantly be wanting to try and find more of this, so you've also got to be quite careful with where you spend it. Spending it on these to get skill points, I wouldn't recommend, because you may not necessarily use these straight away, and you might very quickly come to need more artisan's metal and not have enough of it. So try to avoid crafting this. Let's get us to 25 though. 3 of these will get us to 25. We got our first time craft bonus from that again. Boom, there we go. Dragon Isles Jewelcrafting Specializations. If we take a quick look at these, you'll notice now that we can unlock one of them. As a jewel crafter, you have access to 4. I'm not going to go into too much detail about these because the specializations themselves could warrant an entire video by itself. But what you'll notice is at this point, you'll have a bunch of Dragon Isles knowledge. I would hold back on actually spending any knowledge points. I wouldn't go as far as to spend knowledge points yet. I'd have a little bit of a look through these. Have a read through what the different nodes offer you and the different spec trees offer you, and decide which route you're going to take. This is the meaningful choice that Blizzard is adding with the professions in Dragonflight. And knowledge is one of those things where there's no undo button. At least at time of recording this, there's quite a demand for a bit of a reset button on this, because if you put points in something and then you decide you'd rather put the points somewhere else, there's no undo. So you want to be really cautious about where you do put your points. So at this point, hold off. Have a little bit of a read through this, have a little bit of a look at this, maybe look up some guides on which ones are sort of more optimal maybe. But as it stands, I wouldn't go spending any knowledge points just yet. Get your leveling done, start to get a bit of a understanding of how the profession, in which direction you want to take your profession. Jewel crafters, for example, probably have one of 2 major routes. You're either going to go very aggressively towards cutting gems, or you're going to go very aggressively into crafting jewelry. There are some other options, of course. There's 4 spec trees to play with, but they're the 2 obvious paths, right? From here, though, we want to make a Time Watcher's Patience. Oh, okay, this is a cool thing. Let's learn some recipes. Bunch of recipes there. Right, so now we'll see. We need to get to 40 skill points before we can learn anything new from the trainer, at least. We've unlocked now some of our rare cuts, the Nosderite cuts. You should have probably, if you're lucky, have acquired a couple of Nosderites to this point. The orange gems when prospecting seem to be a lot more readily available. I don't know if this was entirely intended or whether it was just based on the testing that I'd done through prospecting, but you tend to get a lot more orange ones. Maybe that's because that they give you the Nosderite cuts through the trainer. But from here, Time Watcher's Patience is something we probably want to pay attention to. This gives me a good opportunity to let people know. This is actually on a cooldown. This, I believe, is on a 20-hour cooldown. So you can't do this repeatedly. But at this point, it is actually quite a good way of gaining skill points. Now, I've inconveniently ran out of Eternity's Amber. So let's maybe prospect just a little bit more ore while we're waiting on this. We're probably going to look at crafting a bunch of the cuts at this point, meaning you're going to need to get your hands on a bunch of Nosderites. In any of the process prior to this, maybe it's sensible to not look at prospecting any of this for like gem powder or anything, even though you might have more of them available, simply for that one reason that we now need quite a lot of orange ones to level up. If you're looking for more of the cuts, this is where you need to start looking at the spec trees. You can put points in the spec trees. If you're going to go in that sort of direction of aggressively cutting gems, you'll unlock a lot of the patterns through the spec tree, or you might need to go out into the world and start doing some of the rep grinding, gaining renown levels with some of the different factions to go and pick up some more of the cuts. Are we looking good on gems, though? We're looking good on gems. We can make one of these now. So let's make our Time Watcher's Patience then. Some finely ground gemstones, some fractured glass, which you should have had. You'll always have plenty of this fractured glass. This won't be a problem at all. But we can craft this up now. See, it's on a 20-hour cooldown. A little bit, what's that make it? Like 8, 9 of these you can craft a week. But this should hold a bunch of Nosderites. Here we go. 2 quality 1. 3 quality 2 and 2 quality 3 Nosderites. So nice little selection there. Nice little selection. For the purpose of leveling, I probably wouldn't recommend using the quality 2 or the quality 3 ones for leveling. You want to probably save these until you're a little bit more specialized in cutting with them to really get the bonus from them. But now we are looking at crafting a few gems. We're going to need to get to 40 before we can do much more. I've got it down here of a selection of Nosderite cuts, 14 to 20 Nosderites. And at this point, you will also then find that you need a whole bunch of these awakened essences. The Nosderite cut is a stamina heavy gem. Stamina heavy with a sprinkling of secondary stats. Whether it be mastery, whether it be haste, whether it be crit, or whether it be verse. Interestingly, I wonder if that's just a bit of a bug. That it's, okay, the tooltips look to be a little bit weird, but it is beta after all. Be aware that these awakened essences might be quite expensive in the early days if you are trying to push this in the first week or so. Be prepared for these to be relatively expensive, I would suspect. But probably 13, 14 cuts of these should get us up to 40. I made it out to get to about 42 skill points is where we probably want to push this to now. For the purpose of this, I'll just craft a bunch of the same one because it doesn't make a huge difference. What I would suggest doing actually for the first time craft bonus is craft at least one of each of them. If you craft one of each, you'll get the artisan's metal, you'll get your knowledge point. And then once you've made one of each, then you can maybe look at just crafting up a bunch more of them as and where necessary. This is actually a good opportunity to showcase what quality does. You can see if we change it between a quality 2 and a quality 3 gem, what actually happens is your skill increases. Higher quality materials will give you more skill, and the more skill you have, the closer you'll get to the recipe difficulty. The more skill you have and the closer you get to the recipe difficulty, the greater the chances of actually creating better quality cuts. But as you can see here, our skill is still very basic because we're in the early days of leveling Jewelcrafting. Our skill is very basic. We've not got any points in our spec trees at this point. Even using top quality Nosderite rare gems, we're still not even going to guarantee ourselves a quality 2 cut, which arguably would mean it's a little bit of a waste using the higher quality gems for this purpose. You want to use higher quality materials when it's going to push you into the next quality of cut. A quality 2 forceful Nosderite would or should arguably be worth more than a quality 1 version. Quality 1 is 16 stam and 8 haste, 18 stamina and 10 haste for the quality 2. They're only small little bumps in stats when you move up in the quality, but of course the min-maxes out there want as much as they can get their hands on. What I am going to need is a bunch more Nosderites though. This is where I'm probably going to switch up to prospecting some Draconium ore. Draconium ore does give you a much greater yield in rare gems. A bunch of uncommons for the most part, but then you should get the rare gems coming through a lot more frequently. Now, at this moment in time, obviously, anything other than a Nosderite we don't really need, but I would obviously very much recommend saving the gems all the same, because when you unlock more patterns, when you go get those renown levels leveled up and can pick up some more cuts, you are going to need these. Or there's the opportunity, maybe, if there's anybody ahead of you, to be selling these on the auction house for a pretty penny in the early days of the expansion anyway. Right, we need, where do we need to get to? We need probably 9 more Nosderite cuts, so let me just craft a bunch of these quickly for the purpose of the video. I'm trying to make sure that these videos don't end up being too long, but of course I'm deliberately not cutting anything out so you can see the full process and roughly how long it takes. 40, 41... You see at 40 they did go yellow, meaning we weren't necessarily guaranteed skill ups. And at 42 they've gone green. This is why I've chosen at 42 skill points to recommend people stop cutting these here. Now with Jewelcrafting as it stands, we are really restricted on what we can do from this point on. You'll start to notice once much past skill 40, your options for skill points are very few and far between. Elemental Harmony is going to be quite expensive to make. As you can see, it uses 1 of every single rare gem, plus it uses this Primal Convergent. This is made by alchemists, and if you are just a jewel crafter, you're probably going to have to source this off the auction house, or if you have an alchemy alt, you'll have to get it. You can maybe look at crafting it yourself. But this in itself is probably going to be quite expensive. 1 of each of the rare gems, at least in the early days of Dragonflight, is going to be quite expensive as well. So you've got a few choices here. If you're really just trying to power level, try and get your hands on enough of these to make like 2 or 3 of these. If you can make 3 of these, you'll get to 45, which will allow you to pick up the last item from the trainer. Alternatively, if you want a slightly cheaper, slightly slower approach, there's the Time Watcher's Patience. Of course, it's a 20-hour cooldown, but it's substantially cheaper. So if you're willing to wait a day or 2 to just click this button a few times to get your skill points, this is certainly a viable option. For the purpose of the video though, I will probably power forward and try and just unlock this. But for the most part, we're about there. You're crafting a few elemental harmonies, you get to 45, then you craft a couple of these. This is your next quality of Jewelcrafting accessory. You'll see this one's rare, this one's blue. The uncommon ones we were making at the beginning, very cheap to make. These are substantially more expensive to make, but you'll see these even offer perks such as bonus Jewelcrafting skill natively. So there'll come a point where you're gonna wanna, you're gonna wanna min-max your profession tools as well if you're really trying to push those professions as far as they can go. Have we got a bunch of gems now? I need 1 more Neltherite to be... Yeah, there we go. That'll do us for now. Let me grab a couple of Primal Convergents just off this vendor. Which one sells them? One of them sells them. Like I said, come live, these you'll probably have to pick up off an alchemist. Are they going to be sold from you? There we go. They're not 20 copper when they go live, I can tell you that much for a fact. But we can now make 3 of these. This Elemental Harmony, you've got a choice again. You can either look at selling this on the auction house. Did that give me 5? Did crafting that give me 5 knowledge points? And 5 artisan's metal? I wonder if that's an I wonder if that's meant to be the case. I'm not sure. I don't think that actually did give me 5. I think that's a tooltip error. But these elemental harmonies, you will use these later on. These go into some of the crafting of the end game jewelry. So your choice here is either to maybe in the early days try and sell them if you don't have any immediate use for them, because their value will be very high to begin with, or hold on to these because you will use these as a jewel crafter later on down the lines. But at 45, we now should be able to pick up that last recipe. And this will be our ticket to getting to skill 50. You'll see now that we're in the same sort of position. We could either continue making these elemental harmonies if you can sell these at a profitable point to get to skill 50. If you want the slightly slower but cheaper approach, you can just, every 20 hours click the button here. This will slowly but surely get you to skill 50. Or you can look at crafting this. Crafting one of these is going to require a lot of artisan's metal. You can see so far we've only acquired 55 of it. This has come from the first time craft bonuses. Going forward though, if you are leveling a character, there are some quests out in the world where you can pick up some more of this. You probably are going to It's probably going to take you a little while to acquire 225 of it to make one of these though. So I would say if you are really trying to get to 50 skill points quickly, your quick option is by making these. It's the quick option, but it's going to be the expensive option. Once you do get to 50 though, you'll unlock a second specialization. And then my suggestions from that point on is to maybe switch your filter over to showcase the first craft bonuses. Wherever you have any first craft bonuses left, crafting each one of these items is going to give you some more artisan's metal, and it's going to equally give you a knowledge point to spend in your spec trees as well. So maybe follow a simple leveling path and then look at ticking one of every one of these, and then you should be off to the races. From that point on, you may find that there's really not much to craft. You're going to have to look at putting some points in your spec tree to unlock some more patterns, or you're going to need to head out into the open world, do some rep grinding, pick up some patterns to get some endgame crafts. And from this point on, work orders are your friend. You're going to need to fulfill work orders on some of the high-end crafting gear to push from 50 to 100. So there we go, boys and girls. That was a little, although I say little, it's nearly 32 minutes long. I don't particularly want these videos to be super long, but let me know if you made it to this point, whether this was useful, whether this amount of detail is going to be beneficial to you. I'd love to know what you think about it. If you want me to do different professions, let me know in the comments down below which professions you'd like to see leveling guides for. I do, over the next few days and weeks, plan to do a video similar to this for all of the professions, but let me know which one is kind of like top of your list, and I'll see if enough people pick the same profession, maybe I'll bump it up the list. But anyway, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.